gonna be. Give it up, it's gonna be alright.
Hi everyone, and welcome to This Week in Trans Stupid, the weekly series where I run over some of the events that have gone on in the past week and give you my rundown. I don't just limit this to being on trans news, I also include LGBTQ, the whole umbrella, because I believe that stupidity is intersectional. I'm going to make that my new catchphrase. So the first story that I want to be talking about this week is one which happened just after I uploaded my last video, and this concerns lesbian tennis player Martina Navratilova and her comments on whether trans women should be taking part in women's sports. According to Gay Star News, Martina Navratilova has doubled down on her view opposing trans women in women's sports. The gay tennis legend has sided with those who claim trans people have an unfair advantage. Medical experts state trans women who regularly take estrogen have no advantage over cis women, but some critics say trans women may have larger bodies that enable them to be stronger. However, others say this does not necessarily give them an advantage in many sports. Many have also noted it is very rare for a trans person to win a world sport title. It's quite notable they're not including any links to back up what it is that they are claiming. To say that there is no advantage that a trans woman could have over a cis woman seems a bit out there, if I'm being completely honest. Gay Star News continue by saying critics are now calling Navratilova a TERF for her comments in the Sunday Times. She says the rules on trans athletes reward cheats and punish the innocent. Simply reducing hormone levels, the prescription most sports have adopted, does not solve the problem. A man builds up muscle and bone density as well as a greater number of oxygen-carrying red blood cells from childhood. Training increases the discrepancy. Indeed, if a male were to change gender in such a way as to eliminate any accumulated advantage, he would need to begin hormone treatment before puberty, and for me, that is unthinkable. Now, these comments actually follow similar claims which she made in December 2018 over Twitter. Now, that post was actually deleted fairly quickly, but it does seem that she's now come back and doubled down on what she originally said. Going further, she's also claimed you can't just proclaim yourself a female and be able to compete against women. There must be some standards, and having a penis and competing as a woman would not fit that standard. I promised to keep quiet on the subject until I properly researched it. Well, now I've done that, and if anything, my views have strengthened. To put the argument at its most basic, a man can decide to be female, take hormones if required by whatever sporting organisation is concerned, win everything in sight and perhaps earn a small fortune, then reverse his decision and go back to making babies if he so desires. It's insane and it's cheating. I was happy to address a transgender woman in whatever form she prefers, but I would not be happy to compete against her. It would not be fair. So it's easy to see why exactly she's being labelled a TERF. She's speaking out against a narrative backed up by trans activists, and that's it. She's said that she's respectful of trans women, she just doesn't want to compete against one because she sees that there is an unfair advantage that the trans woman might have over her. It's as simple as that. But the condemnation has been swift. Now you've seen the way in which the Gay Star News article was framed. I actually used to write for Gay Star News and I was told by them to always be impartial when you're reporting on things. But it's clear that they had an agenda here and they're not the only one. This includes a controversial trans athlete by the name of Rachel McKinnon. You might remember McKinnon from setting the women's 200 metre cycling record back in 2018. She also won the gold medal in the UCI Masters Track World Record Championship. And this attracted further controversy when the woman who came in third complained that McKinnon had a natural advantage. What I find particularly concerning about this part of the debate is that it's always being framed as though any talk against the narrative has to be transphobic. It doesn't matter whether you respect trans women or not. You can be as polite as you can even recognise us as women, but the second you start questioning the biology, all of a sudden that's enough to get somebody labelled a bigot. And this has had quite a big impact on Navratilova already. An LGBTQ sports group has cut ties with her for what they consider as being transphobic opinions. This is despite the fact that she is one of the first openly gay athletes out there, and has been a big advocate for LGBT rights. You speak out against the collective once, And that's it. No forgiveness. I see absolutely nothing controversial in what she said. I am not someone who claims to be an expert on whether a trans woman who has gone through hormones would therefore be at the same level as a cis woman in sports. I cannot claim to know the entire science behind it, but I somehow doubt that Navratrilova's critics are scientific experts themselves. They just seem to be pushing an ideology here and not allowing anyone to question it, just saying, well, these scientists say so. Well, in that case, we need to see these actual studies. These need to be more easily available. If it is a fact that a trans woman and a cis woman can compete in the same sport and they will be at the same level, it needs to be shown and not hidden away. And moving on, I just wanted to quickly touch on a matter which isn't in the news, hasn't been in the news for a while, and probably won't be for the foreseeable future, and that is everyone's favourite alleged flasher, NUS trans officer Jess Bradley. See, I thought that the Bradley saga would have come to an end back in January when the NUS made moves to defund the NUS trans campaign, and despite this, the trans campaign went ahead with a conference in which they elected new leadership, the results of which have been completely hidden from anyone who's outside of the inner circle. So why am I bringing this up? Well, out of boredom, I actually gave the NUS a call last week, just to see whether there had been any kind of update. Not only did they tell me that the investigation is still ongoing, almost 7 months after Bradley was suspended in the first place, but that they said that they had issued a statement on this 3 months ago, which I think is a complete lie because I've been in touch with them every single month since Bradley was first suspended. They did send me a statement which was dated the 30th of January, however, which says they can't make any comments because the investigation is still ongoing. At this point, I don't get why they're pretending. It's clear they are not looking into this problem at all. This is in the age of Me Too. They have very serious allegations put against one of their own members of staff. If Bradley identified as a cis-het white male, I somehow doubt that they would have been given this same luxury. So what has Bradders been up to then? Well, you might be interested to know that they've set up a couple of organisations because they've got to keep working, one of which is Books Beyond Bars UK. They claim to give books out to LGBT prisoners, and I'm sure that's something which they do, but they also advocate for prison abolition, which is a really big issue for Bradley, especially when you consider some of the allegations that have been put against them. You can't look someone up in prison if there's no prisons. There's also the Manchester in Common group, which claim to help small businesses. They've tried to scrub Bradley's details from the site, although Bradley's email address is still there. I just wanted to touch on this because I find it quite funny just how long all of this is taking. It is clear they are not looking into this, and I wish that the members of the NUS trans campaign or the LGBT plus group were just as vocal about why they're dragging their feet on this matter as they were when they were told their precious campaign would be defunded. I think that there is a lot more going on here, which is one of the reasons why I keep bringing this up. This is going to blow up one day as a massive scandal, and I want to be one of the people who has been holding them to account. Okay, so whilst I was editing this video, this event popped up in my Facebook feed. So this is a part of Brighton Trans Pride, where the NUS LGBT plus campaign and Books Beyond Bars UK are teaming up to protest about trans prisoners. Now this is very interesting because, as you know, Bradders is still suspended from the NUS. And yet here we have an event which is organised by Rob Noon, by the way, teaming up with Bradley's organisation. So they're still talking to each other, but they're not saying anything to any of their members. I just find it very interesting that despite this investigation going on, the NUS LGBT campaign is still quite happy to associate with Bradders publicly. Of course, none of their members are going to pull them up on this. They wouldn't dare do so. But I just wanted to just bring this to everyone's attention. Also, they've added auto-moderation to their comments. I posted one on the group calling them out on this, so it looks like nobody can challenge them on the group about what they're doing. That's very transparent, isn't it, guys? The next topic I'm going to talk about, as a bit of a trigger warning, involves the most evil human being, not just who's alive today, but of the last millennium. And of course, I'm talking about the Cheeto Hitler himself, Donald Trump. See, the Trump administration actually announced plans to attempt to decriminalise homosexuality worldwide. That's right. I cannot think of anything more sinister. And thankfully, we had Gay Magazine out there to criticise him for it. Trump's plan to decriminalise homosexuality is an old racist tactic. Of course it is. But let's see what bad the Orange Man has done this time. The Trump administration is set to launch a global campaign to decriminalise homosexuality in dozens of nations where anti-gay laws are still on the books. Whilst on its surface, the move looks like an atypically benevolent decision by the Trump administration, the details of the campaign belie a different story. Rather than actually being about helping queer people around the world, the campaign looks more like another instance of the right using queer people as a pawn to amass power and enact its own agenda. The most telling detail of NBC News' report is that his plan centres homophobic violence in Iran, who NBC News calls the administration's top geopolitical foe. The plan has reportedly been spearheaded by the US ambassador to Germany, Richard Grenell, who is also the administration's top-ranked gay official, in response to news that a young gay man was hanged in Iran recently. There is no secret out there that the Trump administration and Iran have been at odds since Trump took power. That they're going to use discrimination against homosexuals as yet another way of attacking that administration is of note, should not really be of any real surprise, but I don't see how this is a particularly bad thing, and the concerns that this journalist have about Iran do come across as quite strange. According to the original reporter from NBC, we know Trump is very focused on Iran and is looking for ways to demonise it in the public opinion, and this is one area where you know the US and European countries see eye to eye. Iran is demonised for very good reasons. Being found guilty of homosexuality in Iran can find you facing the death penalty. This is why a lot of gay men in Iran opt to transition to become women, because that's the only way that they can get around such a barbaric practice. On top of that, this is a country where women can't exactly dress the way that they want. A woman not covered up wearing a hijab can face trouble from the morality police. So there's very good reasons why Iran isn't held in particularly high regard. This just seems to be another opportunity to dunk on the evil Orange Man. There are several signs that this decision is denoted in a colonial sense of paternalism rather than in any true altruism. According to the report, the decriminalisation campaign is set to begin in Berlin, where LGBTQ+ activists from across Europe will meet to hatch a plan that is mostly concentrated in the Middle East, Africa and the Caribbean. That sentence alone should set off several alarm bells. Is it because these are the areas of the world in which homosexuality is still illegal? So should Trump's campaign to get homosexuality decriminalised focus on countries where homosexuality has already been decriminalised? And not just that, countries where gays enjoy rights such as being able to get married, adopt children, not face discrimination in the workplace? Should he really be focusing on these countries and not, for example, the Middle East, where gay people get thrown off buildings? Is that what you're really suggesting here? First of all, the Middle East, Africa and the Caribbean are huge geopolitical entities. Attitudes towards gay people differ greatly among countries and regions within those entities, and attempting to gather a room of European activists on how to deal with queer issues in those regions is the definition of paternalism. Again, homosexuality is illegal in a lot of these countries. Groups from them aren't necessarily in a place where they can properly organise and really coordinate. They will be putting themselves at massive risk. And I don't see the problem in people from places where it isn't illegal are able to say, this is why this should not be illegal. I get that Orange Man is bad, but I would rather side with Donald Trump than Iran. I know discussing Donald Trump can be quite traumatising for a lot of trans people, and unfortunately the next subject of this video is not going to be any easier to hear. See, I'm talking about packages of chocolate, because that's now transphobic. A chocolate maker called Whittaker faces a backlash over its take on the baby gender reveal. Whittaker's latest chocolate block has been criticised for erasing people in the rainbow community and promoting Antiquated gender stereotypes. The new coconut ice surprise blocks made to support Plunkett come in blue or pink, and customers find out which colour they've received when they open the block. The product is a take on baby gender reveal parties, which have become popular in New Zealand and worldwide. Several people criticised the campaign on social media as erasing intersex, transgender, gender non-binary and gender fluid people. Yes, this is absolutely awful that a chocolate company is not recognising the fact that a baby could well be identifying as fucking Jupiter. This whole idea of getting outraged over gender reveal parties is something which I've always found to be quite childish. Let the parents celebrate if they know that their baby is going to be biologically male or biologically female. The chances of that being correct are almost 99.9999999%. Let them have their fun, and if it turns out that baby is indeed trans, let them deal with that later on in life. Getting angry about a chocolate bar just because it's not recognising people who identify as no gender or every gender or water or the moon just shows how much of a joke this movement is becoming. It's like you can't say anything without it causing outrage. There's not much more that I can say at this point, because these kinds of stories are cropping up all too often. A company will do something small, and not only are they being attacked for being transphobic, but it's for erasing identities nobody even knows about. And the sad thing is, we're going to be seeing this more and more as the trans movement gets more and more emboldened to take offence. Because this is what gives them the power. And moving on to some more manufactured outrage, and this one is particularly strange, which is why I wanted to comment on it. According to Gay Star News, again, American rapper Blueface makes transphobic remarks about fan on Instagram. Blueface referred to the trans woman as it. Now, at the face of it, that actually sounds quite horrible. Why would you be calling a trans woman it? It's not a particularly nice thing to do. So why did he do this? See, it turns out that this trans woman that he is talking about sent him completely unsolicited messages offering him oral sex. Yep. A screen grab which was posted on Instagram actually shows the conversation. The trans woman in question is left unnamed, but this is a particularly weird thing to start an outrage over. How dare you refer to her as it? You should be much more respectful. Well, she should be more respectful as well. Why are you sending messages to people offering them oral sex out of nowhere? This isn't good form. I don't have any sympathy for her, to be quite honest. She's put him in a fairly awkward situation. Quite frankly, I don't expect him to act in the most gracious manner after sending messages like this, especially as he did not want them. So forgive me if I'm not going to join the outrage wagon on this and saying, you should be respecting this person's pronouns. This is the real outrage here. Not someone pestering somebody else for sex. Because I think that that's the real problem here. And finally, I wanted to end this on a bit of a light note. We've talked about a lot of stupidity today, so I wanted to end on a little bit of sanity for a change. And I just wanted to discuss Talisa Garcia. She is a trans actress who is appearing in the BBC drama Baptiste. She recently came out as trans after her character on the show did the same. Now, she did an incredibly good interview with The Telegraph where she talked about her upbringing, but also touched on how crazy she finds the modern trans movement and some of the attitudes which they have. This hasn't necessarily gone down well with some of the trans people who have noticed her saying this, but I wanted to point out that this is incredibly refreshing to see a trans celebrity not follow the party line here. Really, we need more people like her. People who are going to be showing that actually you don't have to be a mindless drone and just repeat talking points that make absolutely no sense. Trans people can and do think for themselves. They are their own individual agents. And I think that it's great that we have someone who is clearly going to be rising more and more in the public eye, openly talking about this and actually challenging them. Hopefully we're going to see a lot more of this in the future. And maybe we might get more rational trans celebrities standing up and actually calling out a lot of this bullshit. I think that this is a great move and I just wanted to highlight it. And if you're able to access the Telegraph interview, I highly recommend doing so. But she also did an interview with the Daily Mail where she touches on quite a few of the same points. So please let me know in the comments what you think about this video. Was there anything in particular that I missed out? I know that I've been saying this a lot. I am working on other videos. Trust me, I'm not just doing a Jablinski Games here when I say this. I am aiming on getting a video out this week actually on a individualist argument for trans rights, and I am also working on a whole new series of videos. I'll give more details on that when I'm in a better position to do so. But thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.